Welcome back to the County News Podcast. My name is Charlie Ban, and this is our series from the National Center for Public Lands Counties. This series of interviews took place at NACo's 2024 Western Interstate Region Conference, with the goal of shedding light on the experiences of public lands officials, counties, and the officials who lead them. In this, our third episode in the series, my co-host Matt Chase interviews Jeff Griffiths from Inyo County, California.
Well, welcome to the National Association of Counties podcast, Talking Public Lands. I'm Matt Chase, the Executive Director of NACo, and I'm very honored to be joined by Supervisor Jeff Griffiths of Inyo County, California, or
That's right.
Inyo Face County, California. And you also are a leader of the California State Association of Counties. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here.
You have such an amazing personality, but also career. And how did somebody from Ohio find their way to the Death Valley area of California?
It was actually quite random. My wife, we had just had a baby, and she was finishing her residency, about to start off as being a doctor, and didn't quite know where we wanted to go. And so she applied for a job through the Indian Health Service, and a job in Bishop, Inyo County, California came up randomly. I said, "Where's that? I've never heard of it." And moved out there and ended up falling completely in love, and no other place that I would rather live in the whole world.
So we're up here at the 2024 Western Interstate Region up in Mariposa County, California, gateways to Yosemite. How's this different than your county? What's your landscape like?
Well, it's really interesting, Matt, because we're sitting right now 68 miles from my home.
68 miles.
But it took 6.5 hours to drive here because there is a huge mountain range in the middle of it. So we are sitting on the west side of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and they act as a big rain shadow and squeezes all of the moisture out until you get to our side on the east side. And so we're high desert, we're dry, we don't have the trees, we're wide open spaces, and where I live is the deepest valley in North America. We're surrounded by 14,000 foot peaks on either side, and it's gorgeous every day you step out of the house.
So it's dry because you're on the east side.
Yep.
And you got about 19,000 people in your county?
We have 19,000 people, over 10,000 square miles. It's 6.5 million acres with 19,000 people.
Wow, 6.5 million acres. I think that's the same size as the Adirondack Park in upstate New York where I grew up, and it's the largest state park in the lower 48, and yet your county's the same size as this monster state park. That's absolutely incredible. So like your journey, you've got a forestry degree. Mm-hmm. And how has that helped you, especially dealing with public lands?
It's actually helped a lot because the big issue right now is wildfire and forest management. And I didn't know that policy would be such an important part of my life, but the background that I have in forestry and natural resources and agriculture has actually prepared me well to tell the rural story to the more urban audiences, which contain the decision makers, which dictate what happens on our landscape.
So how much of your county is federal public land versus taxable land?
Yeah.
You can generate a tax base from?
So as far as private land on the tax rolls, that's 1.7%.
1.7%?
1.7% of those 10,000 acres. So about 90% of that is federal land, both with the Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, National Forest Service, and the remaining 8% or so is owned by the city of Los Angeles.
So they get their water?
They came about 100 years ago and bought up all the land in order to take the water.
Wow. So out west, there's nothing more controversial than water. So we'll come back to that a little bit. So let's talk a little bit more about your journey, though. Like you served in the Peace Corps down in Panama. Mm-hmm. How has your varied career helped prepare you to be a county supervisor?
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
Can you be prepared to be a county supervisor?
You know, I don't think you can ever really be prepared, but my time in the Peace Corps, I spent building potable water systems and teaching sustainable agriculture, but in the end of the day, what I was doing was community organizing.
Right.
Was bringing the people together, finding out what resources are available, and teaching people how to organize themselves and advocate for what they need. And it's really interesting to me how those skills have translated directly into what I do as a county supervisor. You know, there's no magic wand or unlimited budget, and particularly in a rural, isolated region like we have, you get what you get.
Right.
There's the resources that are there, and so a lot of my job is knowing where all of the resources are, knowing who are the people that can influence those resources, and bringing people together to try to solve the very real issues that are on the ground.
Yeah, and obviously with your county, less than 2% being taxable private land, you are facing considerable issues with managing public lands. And we can talk about that, but I think for our listeners, what would be interesting is your focus, in addition to wilderness issues and the environment, you're trying to get commercial air service, you're dealing with short-term rental issues as a vacation hub, you had to deal with cannabis. One of your passions is helping troubled youth in foster care. Those to me sound like, you mentioned Los Angeles, those sounds like urban issues. So how does a rural county of 19,000 people, huge landmass, how come you're dealing with the same issues? Talk to me a little bit about.
Well, so because we have such limited land, housing is a huge issue. There is a lack of affordable housing, a lack of housing on all levels. And so when you look at some of the primary issues that the Forest Service, for instance, is facing, or the Park Service, or BLM, it's lack of employees, and where do you find a place for those employees to live? And we have, on a per capita basis, we have the same rates of homelessness that Los Angeles County has.
Wow. Great climate, dry, majestic landscape.
Very friendly community. It's a very safe community, and it's a place where it can be a little bit more pleasant to be living as a homeless person than the streets of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so those issues, you could name any of them: access to broadband, transportation in and out, economic development. We face all of those same issues, but we don't have the same resources. We don't have the economy of scale to, for instance, build a substance use treatment center.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about two things, and they're a little bit different here, very different. One, commercial air service. So you worked really hard to get, at this point, seasonal air service into your local. What did you learn from that process?
What I learned is you have to combine the economic resources that come from the industries that are going to benefit from commercial air service, and you have to somehow marry that with the community benefits and the quality of life interests that my constituents have.
Right.
They're very different, and it takes a lot of political skill to bring all of those together to actually make a project like that happen.
Is that really important for the local residents as much as it is to get tourists into the area, or both?
Absolutely. So bringing the tourists in is what pays the bills.
Yeah.
That's makes the economic sense of that investment. But where Inyo County is situated, Bishop, the town that I live in, it's a 4.5-hour drive to Las Vegas, 4.5-hour drive to Los Angeles, 3.5-hour drive to Reno. Like, those were our portals to the rest of the world. And so whether you're going to visit grandkids somewhere, or you need to travel for business, or you need to access healthcare somewhere else, it's a significant barrier for, and all of those times are when there's no snow and mountain passes are open and all of that.
So it's a safety issue, it's an economic issue.
And so it's very important for the quality of life for our people to have that transportation access.
Well, congratulations on the success. And we know when you're dealing with commercial air service, it's all about collaboration.
Yeah.
And you got to make the economics match many other factors. And so that's a huge victory, and congratulations. I'm going to pivot a little bit to, it's really exciting. You're going to be president, I believe, of the California State Association of Counties. Mm-hmm. And why'd you decide to run for that? That is a huge responsibility with monster issues that you're dealing with across public policy. What motivated you to run for that?
Yeah, so in rural counties, I think this is true everywhere with rural counties, but particularly in our situation, being so remote and such a small population, both in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., it's pretty easy to overlook our issues. And the platform of being president of CSAC allows me to be in the room with the decision makers and tell those stories. And there's a lot of connections. Water is an easy way to look at it, right. But the water is, falls as snow, melts in our region, and then flows down to the urban areas and the large agricultural areas that use that water. And so how do you tell the story in a way that connects the downstream users to the issues that impact the resources that they're using? And you can expand that out to air quality, quality of life, carbon sequestration. Like, there's a lot of ways that what happens in our remote area of the world affect those taxpayers and decision makers that live in the urban areas.
Well, I know you're going to be successful. I grew up in an upstate New York community that included dairy farmers. And I noticed in your bio that you did a little dairy farming. And I say, if anything prepares you in life for challenges, it's working on a dairy farm.
There you go.
Hardest working people on the planet, have to know so many skills, and you got to navigate a 1,000-pound animal that isn't always happy. So,
and it has to happen twice a day.
And it has to happen twice a day. Every day. So as we wrap up here, what are your priorities moving forward? What are the big things that you're working on? And also, when you leave office, what advice would you like to give a new supervisor that's coming in? So let's talk first about what are the big things that you're working on, or the important things that you're working on, and then we'll end up with what's your advice?
Yeah, so I really want to move the needle on housing and homelessness, and look for ways to give the on-the-ground experience in a small community, give that information to our state and federal leaders to adjust their programs in ways that are more effective. Yeah. There's a lot of money getting spent on the issue, and it's not necessarily been effective, and I think that there's some really positive changes that we can make for that.
And as we've talked about housing nationally, we had a major housing affordability task force, and what we started with, as human beings, shelter is the most important thing, along with obviously clean air and water. But shelter is also about safety, it's about health, it's about putting a person in a position to be positive and comfortable. And so I think we just have taken it for granted that everybody is housed, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
So thank you for your leadership on that. And I'll let you continue on your thoughts there.
Yeah, and the other area that I'm going to focus on for my year as president is a little philosophical, but we're entering.
We love philosophy.
Okay, good. We are entering. We're entering into a presidential election cycle that no matter who wins.
Breaking news for our listeners.
That's right. It seems like an old story. But there's going to be some very disappointed and angry people. It's a rematch, 2.0. And so if you look at the work of county government, it very rarely during your day-to-day activities falls into a left-right continuum.
Right.
We're providing basic services, and when you dial down to the core values of our constituents, the citizens and residents of our nation, they're a lot closer than what appears when you watch the news. And I feel that as county leaders, that we can be a model and we can show the rest of the country how we can get along. People from different backgrounds, different faiths, different ideologies. They all like clean water.
That's right.
And they all like sidewalks, and they like a safe way for their kids to get to school.
That's right.
And they like safe streets. And I really want to focus on how we can leverage what you see every day in county government all across this nation into a model that maybe can lead us to a place of peace and healing in this country.
I think that is a great way to end. Jeff, I just want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for your leadership. It's been phenomenal to get to know you over the years. I look forward to continue to working with you. I just think that's a perfect way. Great message for our listeners, and thank you very much.
Great. I look forward to doing this again with you.
And I interviewed Nevada County, California Supervisor Heidi Hall.
Introduce yourself.
Heidi Hall, supervisor in Nevada County in the Sierra Nevada foothills of California.
All right, what do you listen to on a long drive?
Okay, so I like to flip around, so mostly music, and I've started getting into podcasts. So right now I'm listening to Pod Save America, and I'm way behind. My son listens to them all the time, so he's going to tell me which ones to listen to.
What's the public lands makeup of your county?
It's about 40% federal, and then we have a certain percentage that's state as well. Most of it is forest land, U.S. Forest Service land, and then we also have quite a bit of Bureau of Land Management land. In the eastern part of the county, like almost the whole eastern half of our county is forested. And then in places like our Yuba River Canyon, it's checkerboard with state parks and BLM and forest and private, so it can get a little complicated that way.
Yeah, you truly can't treat it as a monolith, because
No.
it could be anything as you walk a straight line, you could cross 3 different boundaries.
Right, which makes doing forest work, doing fuel management a challenge, right? Because we have to have partnerships with every landowner anywhere we're doing that kind of work.
What are the positive and negative impacts that your public lands have brought to your county, and what role does public land management play in your county's culture?
Well, honestly, it's our whole life. It's our whole lifestyle. The reason people live up in Nevada County is because it's so beautiful and natural. I mean, we're surrounded by forest. We have a gorgeous couple of rivers, the Truckee River and the South Yuba River, and there's a lot of recreation around the river. There's a lot of recreation in the mountains for skiing and snowboarding. So, it's just part of our life. We love it. The negative is obviously right now the fire danger. So any place that's as forested as we are has major fire danger because of decades of unmanaged federal land forest, plus the fact that it comes right up next to our towns and homes. We're in the WUI, the wildland urban interface, and that's a huge challenge right now.
What's the biggest public lands related news in your county that's caught the general attention and gotten people talking?
So we've just put together our first ever master plan for recreation, which is super exciting. So we have 8 projects identified that we can spend years working on. But two of the most fun items in there are the South Yuba River Canyon, which is, we have a cohort, we have a group that's already been meeting for about 6 years to work through issues down there, overpopulation, really too many people coming in and not enough infrastructure. And then we're also building a trail that will connect the east side of the county to the west side of the county, 70 miles.
Wow.
Parts of it have already been sort of existing for a while, so we're going to connect the whole thing. So the public is really excited about that. It's a way to use our public lands that we haven't really been able to before.
Tell me about your education, your public lands education, both as a private citizen and now as an elected official.
Well, I have to say, as a private resident in the county, all I knew was that I was surrounded by public lands, and we all go to the Yuba River to use it, or to the Truckee River, and I just thought it was just one sort of big monolith, and not at all aware of the fact that it is this checkerboard, and that there are federal and state borders and different ways to manage the state or the federal versus the county. So I've learned a ton since I've been a supervisor about how that all works.
Tell me about developing relationships with. Tell me about developing relationships with your local BLM or Forest Service personnel, because I always hear that those are the most important relationships you make as a local elected official if you are a public lands county.
They absolutely are, and we have great people, local people, in every agency we work with. So this South Yuba River cohort that we put together includes representatives from Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, state parks, CAL FIRE, all our local fire agencies. We have 2 local environmental nonprofits. We have a local group that just formed itself to deal with chemical toilets on the river. We have the sheriff. So it's an amazing group of people who need to work together to manage the safety on the river, everything from the safety on the river to the trash that gets left there, to the parking issues, which prevents emergency vehicles from getting down there when they need, to the fact that you can't use a cell phone in the canyon, and then all the way up the walls of the canyon where we're starting to do some fuels management as well. So we have to work together to manage it all. And because we've been coming together on this group, those good relationships have carried over in all the other work we do together. So we know each other, we understand each other's obstacles, like the bureaucracies that we each come from, and we couldn't get anything done without that. It's really necessary, and it's also wonderful. It's a great way to get things done.
Obviously, as a NACo broadcast like this, you need to touch on the federal interface. What are some stories of your public lands management that have resonated with your congressional delegation?
I think the really biggest thing, well, the 2 big things that have been an issue forever is the fire issue that we only can do so much. So we're clearing around our homes, each of us individually. We have more fire-wise communities than anyone else in the country, I'm hearing. So we have fire-wise communities that are clearing neighborhoods with their own money and their own time. And then the county has put in millions of dollars to do fuel breaks, all of these things to keep us safe. But all these public lands that we're surrounded by are still major fire danger and create lots of issues for us, including the fire insurance issue, which has become a crisis pretty much. That's been going on for a while, and our delegations, I think, really understand that now. The newer issue has been the outdoor recreation issues that we all saw starting really with COVID, well, even before. So our rivers and ski areas bring tons of people in, and we don't have the infrastructure for it. And then during COVID, that just shot up through the roof. Everybody got outside, and it really hasn't diminished very much. So we need lots of help from the feds in terms of dealing with infrastructure and parking, transportation, phone coverage, toilets, everything, all of the things that you would see in a state park. Mm-hmm. So that's a newer issue. When I talk to congressional staff, I show them a map and we talk about it, and they're pretty amazed how many visitors we get.
Mm-hmm. And did you benefit at all from the Great American Outdoors Act a few years ago in terms of infrastructure improvements on your public lands?
Well, that went to like the emergency needs we had. Okay. So we're sort of just starting to dig into how much we're going to need to really, like in our master rec plan, to really figure out what we're going to do there.
In terms of, and I'm sure there's some questions you'll be addressing in your workshop later today. But what are some of the how have you been able to encourage or attract some ancillary industries that support your outdoor recreation industry? What have you done on the county board to enact policies to help encourage that kind of business development?
We don't need to do that. Okay. So we have like river rafting businesses and ski resorts, and they're doing fine. Okay. The issues that we have are how to manage the people who are coming in to do all that. So the businesses are thriving. It's more the impacts on the local population and on the environment.
You've got all the capacity you need there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Anything I haven't asked about that people should know about being a public lands county official?
I think it's pretty exciting. It's we have big issues to deal with. People forget that while this is an issue, a public lands county has all these issues to deal with and also benefits from the beauty, but the cities, people who live in cities and suburbs, they come up to recreate in those areas. And so sometimes people forget that really this is the issues we have to deal with, we all need to work together on them. Shouldn't just be on the public lands counties, because everybody benefits from having access to our beautiful public lands.
If you stratify your outdoor recreation people, the pinnacle are the leave no trace, the pack it out, pack it in people who will actually try to mitigate their footprint, whereas some of the newer people might not realize what it takes to be a good steward of the place you're visiting.
That's exactly right, and I think we saw that during COVID, and I think this is common to many of the counties who have public lands and access, is that it was a whole new cohort of people who had maybe never been outdoors, who just started to get outdoors, and so there's a lot of education that's needed to teach people how to function in an environmentally sustainable way and a safe way on public lands.
One last question about education, because you mentioned that when a new member of the board, when you have a new member of the board, how do you help bring them along to help them avoid some of the learning curve you had to experience when you first got into public office?
Well, I think they pick it up pretty quickly. I mean, most people who live in the area know these major issues now, but everyone's constituents have the same issues, so they get those phone calls right away.
Okay.
And then I would say our state association, CSAC, and NACo coming to these conferences is super helpful to hear what other public lands counties are dealing with. A lot of commonality, but some things that are very different from the middle of the country as well.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the County News Podcast and our series brought to you by the National Center for Public Lands Counties. For more information about this new center and NACo's work on public lands, visit naco.org.